Greetings, Starfighters. You have been recruited by Centauri himself to listen as we discuss the 1980s film classic about a young man whose talents take him above and beyond the stars. And into the pilot seat, as young Alex Rogan defends us all against Zur and the Kodan Armada. This is The Last Starfighter, and we need everyone on the flight deck as we're about to remake this movie right. Hello, my fellow cinematic architects, and welcome to Remake This Movie Right. We are a member of the Hollywood Outsider Network. Listen to episodes of Remake This Movie Right on iTunes, where reviews are appreciated, your podcast app of choice, or just visit the website at RemakeThisMovieRight.com. Remake This Movie Right is a show where we take an original film that has an actual remake in the works, figure out what still clicks and what doesn't, throw a little bit of humor at it, and then we determine exactly how Hollywood should remake it. So by the end of each episode, we will have the remake ready to roll for Hollywood execs and presented to you in movie trailer form. We are here to tell Hollywood how to remake this movie right. I am your host, Aaron Peterson, and joining me today, you might remember him from Stephen King's It, Big Trouble in Little China, and Gremlins. He's the host that's so outside the box he can't see it. Troy Heinrichs.
What's up, everybody? Glad to be back. Going to be fun today.
Yes.
We're going to outer space.
Well, yes and no. I mean, there's a little bit of planetary action, too. And you might remember him from The Never-Ending Story, Tomb Raider, and our Jumanji episodes, even though he forgot he was on the Jumanji episode. He spent his whole life training to be the Last Starfighter. Scott Clark.
Oh, hey, how's it going, man?
Are you excited about this one?
I'm really excited. This movie is such a thing from my childhood. So many dreams, so many good memories. I can't wait to talk about it.
Well, we should talk about it. For this episode of Remake This Movie Right, we are remaking The Last Starfighter, which centers around Alex, a young guy who has just taken the top score of the video game Starfighter. It turns out that this is no ordinary game. This is actually a test put out by an alien named Centauri, who has been searching for a real starfighter to help save the Star League from a vicious armada. It was released on July 13th, 1984, was directed by Nick Castle and starred Lance Guest, Robert Preston, and Catherine Mary Stewart. Made $28 million domestic, so it wasn't a huge hit or anything, but it's become a huge cult hit over the years, and people still love it. I think, because Scott, you're a big video gamer. You even have the Gaming Outsiders, a podcast you do.
I do.
Is that in your circles? Is that a huge deal?
Not necessarily. I mean, it's not a movie that people talk about a lot. I mean, the video game aspect of the movie was such a big draw for me as a kid, definitely. Mm-hmm. But it's not one that we talk about a whole lot, or we say, hey, you want to come over and watch Last Starfighter? But it's one that's been close to my heart since I was a kid, and for a lot of reasons, which we'll get into here shortly.
We will talk about the history, the memories, etc., like we always do. If this is your first time ever listening to Remake This Movie Right, first half of the show is about the original, second half of the show is remaking the movie. That's what we try to do here. So be sure to, if you've got some memories, you can email them to us. You can, if you have some thoughts on how you would prefer a remake of this movie to go, then you can also email those. That's remakethismovieright@gmail.com, and we might mention it on our next teaser episode. For those, once again, that are new to the show, teaser episodes are only available to subscribers. So if you subscribe to the show, like right now, whatever you're listening to, iTunes, your podcast app, or if you listen on the website, just go to one of those links and subscribe, and then you'll get a teaser episode which talks about the feedback and also teases the very next episode. So those are only available to subscribers. They don't go on the website at all. There we go. All right. Now, are you guys ready for some tidbits, some little trivia bits before we get into your personal memories?
Oh, yeah, totally. This is like one of my favorite parts of this show is hearing about stuff I never knew about the movie and the production and all that. So
okay, well, it's according to IMDb, so there's a possibility it's all crap, but we assume it's true.
You know what they say about assuming?
Yeah, I know what they say. But don't say it because the kids might be listening. It's about video games. The first movie to do all special effects except makeup and explosions on a computer. All shots of spacecraft, space, etc. were generated on a Cray XMP computer. Anybody know that?
I did not. I don't even know what a Cray XM computer is.
I don't.
Sounds like something from Rylos.
Yeah, exactly.
Well played. According to screenwriter Jonathan Butel, the idea for The Last Starfighter came about because he wandered into a video arcade and saw a young boy playing a video game, and also at that time he read the book The Once and Future King by T.H. White. And it occurred to him that What if a video game had been a sword and a stone and a boy had scored an incredible number in that video game, which sent out a ripple effect across the universe? Which is pretty much what this movie is.
Exactly.
Yeah. This is Robert Preston's last movie appearance. It's kind of sad. In 2009, it was announced that a long-awaited sequel, which was to be titled Starfighter and took place 25 years after the original film, which Norman Snow was confirmed to return as Zur, but the sequel was not made, did not go into production. It may had followed Louis Rogan, all grown up, who misses Alex and is brought to Rylos to become a starfighter himself. And there's a couple other theories on how that sequel would have went. But there is actually a remake in the works now, which we'll talk to when we get to the remake section. A couple other ones real quick. Director Nick Castle and actor Lance Guest had previously been both in the Halloween series. Castle, the director, actually played Michael Myers in the original Halloween.
Oh, wow. I didn't know that.
Yep. And Guest played Jimmy in Halloween 2. That one I did know off the top of my head. Robin Williams was offered the part of Zur, but passed.
That would have made that movie so much better.
It was a little too close to Mork. Is that what we're thinking? Or why do you think he passed on it? And lastly, the video game, this seems obvious, but the video game Space Invaders is a major influence behind the film.
Space Invaders?
Yeah, I mean, look at the game. It looks just like Space Invaders.
I would
No,
say
it
it looks
does
more like
not.
Star Wars, doing the Star Wars trench run.
Yeah, that does not look like Space Invaders at all. Space Invaders was like shooting at enemies from the bottom to the top. This was like a 3D model, like in a spaceship.
Yeah, asteroids maybe would be closer, but even then it was shooting from a ship that was actually on screen.
I feel like I'm getting yelled at right now. I feel like mom and dad.
Probably looks more like Tempest, if anything.
What, are we going to throw out every game I don't know? I don't know what you're talking about. Stop speaking alien to me. I don't speak Rylos.
Your translator's not working.
All right, well, let's get into the original movie, but first, here's a clip from the original.
Good show, Starfighter. Way to go.
Alex, look.
Oh my God, was that 900,000? $900,000? You gonna bust the record? Hey! Hey! Listen up, everybody! Alex is going for the record! Record.
Take it.
So we'll just
Oh,
go
I
with-
love that scene.
Yeah, wasn't it great? All right, now let's go to... Scott's making fun of me because we actually didn't have it pre-recorded, so he doesn't know what the clip's going to be yet. The original. Let's talk about the original. For you guys, what makes the movie so memorable? Scott, you're the biggest fan. Why don't you tell us why is this movie so special to you?
The number one reason that I love this movie as a kid and even into my adult years is just it's about a video game. I mean, as a kid, there weren't very many movies centered around video games, and this one was probably might have been my favorite next to Tron growing up. As a kid, I got teased a lot for liking video games so much. It was kind of a fantasy to think that I could do something bigger with my favorite hobby. I mean, there's this scene at the beginning where he's playing this game. He's doing really well. He's got his girlfriend, his family, and his friends watching him and cheering him on as he's doing this. That never happens, people. Like as a kid, that was like, there's hope that this could be something awesome. So that was really the big appeal. You know, as a kid, the story was a lot of fun from the young kid saves the galaxy aspect, but the video game connection is really what sold me on it. I just dreamed about flying to space and actually doing something with my video game skills.
Now, did you ever do this in an arcade where you hit a high score and people were applauding you or anything?
No.
Oh.
The closest I ever had was as a kid. My friends were watching me. I was at a friend's house at a sleepover, and I beat Super Mario Brothers 3 for the first time, and his whole family was watching me. And when I finally beat the final boss, they all were cheering and clapping, and it was a really tense, awesome, fun moment. But that's the closest I've ever gotten.
And that's when you felt like the star athlete, like the
Yes,
just won the
exactly.
game.
Like I just threw the winning touchdown.
Yeah!
Yeah.
Go America! What about you, Troy? What makes this movie special to you?
I saw it a little bit later, just about as I was entering college. So I really glommed on to the whole small town aspect and wanting to escape and get away and do anything you can because you just have this crappy life. And even though it's not a crappy life, you just think you're, as a kid, that there's nothing better that you can do here. So you have to go look somewhere else. And really, it was his roots and his mom and Maggie and Lewis that really got him to go to where he needed to go because he had to save the frontier and eventually Earth because he had to take care of the people that he cared about back home. So it's a good story. I don't know if it actually played out as well as it came across on screen, but it was just such a fun movie too because of the even the opening credits. I listened to that opening credits all the dun, 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 dun. I have that from the Philharmonic on my iPhone. I play it every now and then just when I want to get going in the morning because it's such a cool fanfare.
It's like your Survivor instead of dun,
Yep.
dun, dun, dun. You like just put on some Last Starfighter.
Exactly right.
Wow. And then you enter an arena. It's funny because I hadn't seen the movie in probably 25 years, I want to say. I mean, it's been a long time since I saw it. I was a teenager last time I saw it. And rewatching it for this, all I kept thinking was, I remember why I liked it now. Because honestly, it's one of those movies where it kind of fell to the way. I've seen so many movies. It's one of those that just fell to the wayside. And I remembered parts of it. But then as soon as I start watching it, like everything came back as to why I liked it. And that's, that's a good sign for me when I watch a movie and I'm like, oh, that brings back a memory. That brings back a memory. That brings back. For me, what I remember is when I originally watched this as a kid, I think everybody saw Star Wars and wanted to be Luke Skywalker. They wanted to run down the trenches of the Death Star and save the universe and save the rebellion and everything else. And to me, that's what this movie was about. It was about all those kids that wish they were. Scott sees it as video games. I see it also from a movie aspect. Those kids that were fans of that kind of science fiction, where the small town guy gets recruited to save the universe randomly, and it just comes out of nowhere because he doesn't think he's special. His mom thinks he's special, but that's really about it. The rest of the world doesn't see how special he is. And then somewhere, unbeknownst to him, someone from the universe snatches him up, realizes that he has the power of the Force inside him, which is really what happens to Alex. And then he can basically save the entire universe based on nothing more than his ability no one else appreciates. And I think there's a lot of channeling of the inner child in this movie and really tapping that I want to be more than what I am appeal of so few movies that get right. And I think this one does get it right. It really showcases and lets you know that, you know what, maybe you're not the quarterback. Maybe you're not the all-star athlete. Maybe you're just a geek. And at that time, that was frowned upon, right? Yep. I mean, at that time, now it's like everybody that's a geek is cool. Then was not. I mean, you got noogies, you got your underwear pulled up your crack. I mean, it wasn't a fun time to be a geek. This movie made it okay. Like, you can be that cool guy and be the nerd and still save the world. You don't have to be the athlete. And I think that's why that movie works so well and has stuck around for so long, because it's really one of the first of its kind outside of Star Wars, which you had to have a magical ability to make that one work. This one is a regular Joe, lives in a trailer park. There's nothing special outwardly about him. Then he finds out, man, I actually, all this time I've been quote unquote wasting my life playing video games. I've actually been training to save the world. And I think it is a beautiful story. And rewatching it, because I do think it holds up. I mean, yeah, it's dated, but it does hold up. The story holds up. And I think Lance Guest was great as Alex. One of the most natural actors I've seen from that time period. I just feel like he felt like a real guy the whole movie. He never felt like he didn't feel like Judd Nelson. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like I love Judd Nelson, but he always felt like he was acting. Mm-hmm. And I never got that from Lance Guest. So that to me is what made that movie so special.
It's funny you mentioned the comparison to Star Wars, because the Starfighter itself looks like they tried so hard to get as close to being an X-Wing without actually being an X-Wing. Mm-hmm. Like, they made it just different enough so that people recognize it as something that they've seen before, but not without getting sued. Yeah,
it's like an X plus Y wing. It's got an extra wing or something on it. I also want to mention Catherine Mary Stewart. Whatever happened to her? She was the same way. She's the kind of actress where she always felt like a real person, and she just faded away or something. I always liked her. Night of the Comet, love that movie. Guess nobody else saw it.
I don't know if I've ever seen her in anything else.
Oh, she was in a lot of stuff in the 80s. She was
Weekend at Bernie's.
Yep.
Yep, there you go.
Man, I missed Night of the Comet. I got to watch that one now.
See, she was a good actress. I always hate when you watch these old movies and you see people like Lance Guest. I think should have been a bigger actor. Catherine Mary Stewart, I think, should have been a bigger actress. I mean, you always watch that and like, I wish they would have gotten bigger opportunities because they're a lot more talented than a lot of the people that kept going.
Mm-hmm.
So what no longer works for you? Rewatching this movie, what do you look at and go,
The Bounty Hunter. I think the Bounty Hunter, just with the makeup artist and everything, I don't think that would fly today, especially when you have somebody like Maz from the Force Awakens on Star Wars.
Mm-hmm.
And you can just do so much CG better. It was just the Bounty Hunter just seemed weird and kind of out of place. Like the Kodans
didn't look alive at all.
Yeah, the Kodan people at least looked humanoid. Grill looked humanoid. Centauri looked humanoid. This guy didn't look humanoid. Greg, right.
Greg.
I think it's Krull.
Amateur.
I have Krull in my head for some reason from that Onion article from Obama. I thought that was funny. And so when you look at the humanoid aspect of it, everybody has this humanoid, and then this bounty hunter is so different that I don't think that it fits into this concept of what would be used, I guess. And maybe it was the point to say he is so out there that he's the only one that can be a bounty hunter because the humanoids aren't really that menacing in this movie.
Well, especially because they could shapeshift. Like, he could look like anybody he wanted to, and you would just go to this weird-looking creature that doesn't fit in and stands out like a sore thumb. It just doesn't work.
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah. What about you, Scott? What doesn't work for you?
For me, is the villain, Zur, who's like the supreme bad guy that you hear during the opening scene of Starfighter when he's actually playing the game, and the name is kind of cool. ZUR sounds like this menacing villain.
I think it's XUR.
I'm
XUR
sorry.
on the video game.
I actually have it down as XUR, and I totally just misread that. XUR, Zur. You finally meet this villain, and he's just like a petulant child. Like, he's not scary at all. He's got this scepter, which I have no idea what this scepter is for. He just uses it to once in a while put like this switchblade thing at the top of it to be scary to everybody else. Like, what is this scepter? Is there more behind that?
I think he just whacks people with it like a stick. That's all I ever saw.
He was just so dumb.
I know you take the Chekhov's gun principle, and it's like I waited the whole movie to see him stab somebody with the thing that comes out the top.
Or do something cool with it. I mean, do something.
It literally served no purpose in the story.
Mm-hmm.
It always bugged me, even as a kid. Like, oh, it's cool. He's got a little blade that comes out of it. But and for that matter, that whole race, that whatever is he Rylan? He is Rylan, correct?
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
So like the Rylans just look dumb. They look old, and they've got this receding hair cul-de-sac thing going on the top of their head.
Giant foreheads.
Yeah.
Well, let's be clear. These are the cousins to Lobot. You talk about making the Starfighter look like an X-Wing. I think they truly made the Rylans look like Lobot to try to play off of that kind of Star Wars feel to try to lure over that audience.
Possibly. It didn't look anywhere near as good as anything from Star Wars. I mean, everything looked like it was Cantina characters. I know we talked about that on a previous episode where, I think it was from the Neverending Story episode where everything looks like it was from rejects from the Cantina scene. This looks very much like that, but instead of them just sitting around having conversations, you're actually interacting with main characters in the story, and that's just super awkward.
Speaking of, I can't tell you how many emails I've gotten about ruining people's childhoods with that Falcor comparison.
Mine
You're
included.
welcome.
Yep. That's so creepy. For me, and it's not fair because if you go back to 1984, I think the effects are pretty cool. They obviously don't hold up today. And I think that can be said of almost every movie from the 80s. I mean, there aren't many. I actually think Star Wars holds up for the most part, which is surprising. But most of these don't hold up. So that's not really fair. But if I'm looking at it from today's standards, when we're looking at do you remake it, do you not remake it, effects definitely don't hold up. It's very cheesy. It looks fake. That's just what it is. The music, I think, didn't work then. And it definitely doesn't work now. So
I love the music.
I don't. Tell me what you love about it. Maybe I'm just not hearing it right.
Well, as a kid, I listened to lots of movie soundtracks. It's just, because again, growing up, I wasn't able to listen to any kind of pop music or rock or rap or anything like that. Mm-hmm. So I listened to lots of movie soundtracks, and this one just always stood out to me as just very patriotic almost, even though it's not a patriotic story. It's very catchy, I think it could be remixed, but it sticks in your head very, very easily, and I think it works.
Well, I'll take back what I said because you definitely appreciate this movie. Always spoke to you, so I think you have a better grip on that than I do.
I think you're right, though. Fanfare aside, right? The opening credit music is awesome. Everything else, though, maybe the music in the video game, it has to be the way it is because of the time and the era.
Mm-hmm.
But all the other choices they made for sound in this music, not sound, but music in the movie, I think is really, really off for some reason. It just doesn't fit with that giant fanfare at the beginning.
Yeah, I'll agree with that totally.
Maybe that's what I'm thinking of, because it's the music during the movie is what I don't. The theme is fine. It's the stuff during the movie, like when they're in battle and everything else. It just didn't work for me. It felt kind of generic, I guess.
Battles felt kind of generic.
Yeah. Well, you guys have a fair point, so I will bow to your theories. Should this even be remade? Should this movie be remade for today's audiences, or should it be in don't touch status, Scott?
There's no way this is don't touch status. This movie is begging to be remade and done better because, like you mentioned earlier, I think the story actually works. I think it still holds up, but there's just so many rough edges on the little things done in this movie that could be done so much better. I talk all the time about how remaking movies, I'm totally okay with it because it'll make people go back and watch the original.
Mm-hmm.
I don't necessarily think people need to watch the original. I mean, like I said, the story's good, but it's just not one that I would recommend and say, man, you got to see this movie. It's just one that I grew up with and I've got a special place in my heart for, but I'm not going to, I don't think anybody will have those feelings that I do after having never seen it.
Oh, absolutely needs to be remade. I think for no other reason, the fanfare alone in the beginning is just get you in such a mood, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you go to this concept of playing a video game where you're, the top dog, the hot stuff, and you then go up into space. And this is something that always bothered me about the movie. But in the game, he's got to fly through this whole army of ships and then finally gets to the command ship and takes the command ship on head on. And then in the movie, he's got to get through this entire armada to get to the command ship. And he's like, no, I'll just hide in this asteroid, wait for it to go by, and I'll take out the turret from behind. Sneak attack. It's like, this totally goes against the whole concept of being confident and taking the reins and all of this stuff. And it just seemed like off because he was just a big giant wuss when he finally got into the chair.
Well, I think if you did that in the story where he just went on head on, it would make it just like, oh, yep, that's what happened in the game.
Mm.
He's got to do some kind of strategy different. I mean, I know his abilities are there, but his abilities are what get him through the armada. I mean, if you think about it, when he played the game, he only got to the command ship once. So it's not like he had a whole lot of practice with that.
Mm-hmm.
All of his practice was getting through the just like swarms of ships that went through there. I kind of like the idea that he had to come up with a separate strategy to make it up, but I just think it should be a different strategy than hiding in an asteroid.
So what you're saying is that because I beat World 8-4 in Super Mario Brothers the first time through, that I just got lucky and it wasn't just pure skill?
Well, knowing your gaming ability, yes, definitely.
Nerds. All right. I think it should be remade only because I think kids and teens today would like to see something like this. And I think you could tie it in. I think gaming has changed, but I do think there's still that stigma. Contrary to what Scott will tell you, he thinks everybody's against gamers. I don't believe that at all. I think a lot of people are gamers today, but I don't think people would still take the ability very seriously as a skill. I think it's just they see it as a recreational activity, not something that's really skilled. You see, they'll even take people playing pool. Oh, that's very skilled. Somebody playing hacky sack, that's skill. Somebody playing badminton, that's skill. But playing
beer
games, yeah, well, beer pong isn't skill, man. That's a college sport. But gaming, I think if you really sit down and watch somebody play some of these, it takes a lot of skill. And I don't mean just console or PC. I mean mobile gaming. There's a lot of gaming has evolved, and I think you can make this movie about that evolved generation and do it a little bit more unique, a little bit more different, and still keep the heart of the entire piece together. And I definitely would like to see it.
Let's be clear, mobile gaming is a real skill because to use a virtual D-pad is something that's super difficult on a small screen.
It's immensely difficult. Yeah. All right. Well, that brings us to the remake. Let's get into it. It's time to remake this movie right. But first, we got to hear another clip from the original, and these guys are going to pretend to enjoy this clip because they haven't heard it.
Phew! Foul stench. Dirty creatures. Get a good look, Alex. You can bet your asteroids you'll be seeing more of them.
What?
This is a Zandozan, an interstellar hit beast, compliments of Zur.
Sewer? Why is he after me?
Somehow he found out you're a starfighter.
So you see, Alex, you gotta go back. You got no choice. Because if you stay down here, you're dog food.
Trust Centauri, my boy. Because in 2 hours, this place will be crawling with 10 Zandozans, with just one thought on their microscopic little minds. Kill Alex Rogan.
Kill Alex Rogan. He's right, Alex. At least up there you have a fighting chance in a Gunstar.
Exactly. Meanwhile, down here, they'll be going after Beta.
Babe.
That's one of my favorite scenes in the entire movie.
I love that scene, don't you?
It's so funny.
I hope it's a funny scene because you're going to feel really bad if it's like a death scene or something. Okay, well, before we get into the actual remake of The Last Starfighter, here's what we know about the intended remake. Back in May of 2015, original writer Jonathan Butel, I hope I'm saying his name right. If not, Jonathan, write an email. remakeismoviewright@gmail.com and let us know. He told Yahoo Movies that a lot of things were going on that would see the light of day. Well, it turns out that the reason why Steven Spielberg, Seth Rogen, and other people were unable to get the rights to The Last Starfighter is because the rights had reverted back to Jonathan himself. He didn't even realize it, apparently, is what IMDb says. He tried to shop it around as a film with no takers, which is surprising. So now Jonathan is developing a TV show instead called The Starfighter Chronicles. The show is still in early development, but Butel's partners are Surreal, who's a virtual reality company who aim to incorporate virtual reality as a little bonus to the show and has already had some initial conversations with potential TV networks, but the show could also end up on a streaming service like Netflix or Hulu. The new show doesn't strictly continue the original Starfighter story. Instead, it's going to be a serialized story about alien law enforcement, and it's about instilling a moral code.
Sounds like Star Trek.
Yeah, a little bit. I don't... To me, this doesn't feel like what the remake should be, but it's also going a different route. So, since The Last Starfighter is definitely getting a remake, and because nobody listens to us anyway, we're going to talk now how we should remake it. All remake selections, if you've never listened before, are debated by a vote of 3, so the best of 3. So, if we say it should go one direction, somebody else says it should go another direction, 2 people agree on it, we take that and move on. The only caveat of this is that each host gets one cut. They can yell cut one time throughout the show, and they can go with whatever their idea is and force everybody to take it, and there's nothing else anybody can do for it. They only get one cut per episode, but they can use that cut whenever they need to. Everybody clear on the rules?
Totally.
All right. Well, let's...
So I always wondered, if someone says cut right now, does that mean they get the remake and nobody else can talk? Because nothing's been actually put on the table yet.
Oh, you son of a... I don't know. What do you get? That's a good point. Yes. Sure, they can determine. No, it's only like story. It's only one element. One element can you switch. You can't say cut and here's the movie I want to make.
Aaron's just making up the rules as he goes.
You're not Tarantino, man. You don't have full creative control here.
I do not have that swagger either.
I am totally making up the rules as I go. You're right, Scott. It works. We pretty much stick to them. All right. So who has Scott? I'm going to throw it to you first.
Okay.
What is your concept? How would you modernize it? Where do we start with The Last Starfighter?
Well, the big thing that I want to do differently has to do with the game itself. I want there to still be that video game aspect, obviously, because I'm a huge fan. But like you mentioned earlier, games are a lot different than they were back in the 80s. I mean, all you really had were arcade games. You know, even the console games were very, very primitive in control schemes and graphics and all that. So I think making this about a young kid that plays an arcade game just isn't going to work because of the times. So to modernize it, what I want to do is I want to make Alex, or whatever we call that character, I don't want him to be a kid anymore. I want him to be like a middle-aged man who is actually grown up playing video games. He's really good at video games, and he's now, as he's getting older and starting a family, he's become a collector of vintage video games. So like you could even have him when he was younger, he was a competitive gamer. You know how they had those competitions for arcade scores and stuff that they used to do back in the day? He was really good at that. But now that he's older and he's kind of outgrown it, but he still loves games so much and he's become a collector, he's searching for these arcade cabinets and he comes across a Starfighter game, which is one that he's never heard of. And that's kind of an anomaly for him because he's so knowledgeable about video games and arcade games, and he just can't believe that there's a game out there that he's never heard of. And he becomes obsessed with repairing the machine, learning the game, and eventually mastering the game. And then boom, that's when that triggers something up in space, and Centauri comes down and recruits him. So that's my big thing that I think we could do to modernize it. What do you think?
Say that again. Say that last part again. I'm trying to get a full grasp of what you're...
So, because the whole premise of the movie is that this video game has been made by Centauri as a recruiting device.
Right.
Alex has come across this in his search for collecting games. He's never seen this one before. And so he finds it and then says, wow, I've never heard of this game before. Becomes obsessed with it. He fixes it. He repairs it and learns how to play the game and then eventually masters it like Alex did in the original movie. And when he finally masters it, he feels a sense of accomplishment. And then that's when it triggers Centauri to come and recruit him for real in real life. While part of the original movie was kind of fun with it being a young kid that got recruited, I don't think a young kid's going to play an arcade game. But I still like the idea of it being an arcade game, not like just a console game or a mobile game or something like that. I like the idea of it being this stand-up arcade that's old school and still recruits him.
Okay, there's Scott's pitch. We'll come back to that. Troy, what is your original take on it?
A little bit along the same lines, but slightly different. So I have it continuing in the exact same universe, 30 years later or whatever. And Lewis has actually grown up. He's now the head of a tech giant that specializes in electronics, video game architecture. Because the one thing that bothered me about the original was that when he sat in the Starfighter chair, like the chair and the gunnery like moved with him as he turned and stuff. So of course we have to bring in the virtual reality aspect to make it for modern times. So I had him working on some kind of VR project. At the same time, he knew how important it was for Alex to, get an education and leave the trailer park. So he's like created some kind of STEM program where he's bringing in young minds into the STEM program to help him work on, internships and whatever to build these things. And it's one of these young interns that then sees that he has this Starfighter cabinet in his office from the trailer park, but it hasn't worked in a long time. And so eventually Lewis and this up and coming kid work on the cabinet to get it to work again, unbeknownst to them that in the cabinet, one of the bounty hunters actually came to Earth at some point and installed a virus so that when the cabinet turns back on, it actually signals to someone to do a breakout for Zur, and then Zur ends up coming with his son or whatever. I haven't figured that part out yet, but somehow Zur gets back into the picture, and Zur is on a revenge quest, and so he does a revenge quest to try to find Alex. Never finds Alex because we don't know where he is, but eventually Zur gets to Earth specifically, and then he has to recruit his STEM people to become the Starfighters because they find out that the Starfighters have been wiped out over time.
I like the idea of it being Lewis, especially because the way that the original film ended, where the Starfighter is still like disappearing in the distance, and the first thing Lewis does is goes back to the arcade cabinet, stands on a chair, and begins to learn that game.
I don't know. So you guys you really want there to still be an actual arcade, like an actual stand-up arcade. Because my thinking would have been mobile gaming or make it something modern. Because I guess the whole I always like the concept that they're fielding everybody. That Centauri is actually feeling out the entire planet and trying to find the very best at the game in the universe. And you guys are thinking more like, Troy's thinking more sequel, Scott's thinking more very specific person. I don't know.
Maybe tie it into gaming then and take it like Nintendo World Championships or whatever, and you have some kind of Grandmaster E3 type stage. And maybe it is Lewis's VR technology, and he unveils some brand new game that is a modernized version of Starfighter with VR technology. And then they have these people competing on stage, and then the winner of the competition is the one that ends up becoming the next Starfighter.
My only issue with it being in the same universe is that at the end of The Last Starfighter, all the people in the trailer park now know that there's aliens and that there's this other race of people living out there in the world.
Nobody's going to believe people living in a trailer park. People in trailer parks see aliens all the time, and everybody's
they all died like 5 years later.
Wow. Why would they all die 5 years later?
They were all older.
They were all older.
There were some kids there. Catherine Mary Stewart character was only like 15 or 17 or 18, however old she was. She wasn't.
Was that
old.
weird, by the way, that she and Alex and then Lewis were the only ones like under the age of 45 or 50 in that movie, in that trailer park?
Totally.
Yeah, a little bit, but hey, such is life, man. Such is life.
Well, and even though the trailer park knew that the aliens existed, I think the challenge was that they assumed that Alex would always take care of them, right? Alex was fixing my electric. He was helping me with my plumbing. Alex was out there saving the world. So because of that, they thought Alex was taking care of the world, and they never thought the aliens would ever get to Earth. Because one of the things that I think we have to have in the remake is that they always talked about you've been recruited by the Star League, and there's all these other aliens that he sees when he goes to the briefing. That maybe we have, instead of the Kodan be the enemy, maybe they hook up with Walrus guy that Alex stepped on his foot in that walk past. So maybe it's that alien race somehow attacks Earth because Zur ends up hooking up with them or something.
Let me ask you both this. All right, let's determine this portion right away. We have to get this nailed down. Do you want it to be a remake or a pseudo sequel? Lewis would be a sequel. No Lewis would be a completely different remake. Would be a remake. Which would you prefer?
I'm still in the camp for a remake. I think you're going to have too many loose ends or things that like rules you're going to have to follow in a sequel that I think it'd be more fun to just kind of restart it in the modern age.
I think the way that you get it to get off the ground, because it's been so far removed and it wasn't it's more of a cult classic. You have to bring in some of the original content so that you can bring in the original fans, because then the original fans are going to bring their kids, their friends, their family to come see the new one.
It wasn't really a huge movie though, was it?
That's the thing since it's a cult classic, it's, why would you need to go back to the well? Because like nobody's seen it except for like, nerds like us.
People of that generation. Yeah.
Right.
Which is like all of us now that have parents, and like I would love to show this.
We
to
all
my
have
son.
we all have parents, Troy. I think you mean that have kids.
Yeah, we're parents that have kids.
Okay,
whatever.
That makes more sense.
Shut up.
I don't have any parents.
Yes, you do.
So the reason why is because as I was watching this again, I was like, man, I really want Casey to watch this, my son, but he's 8. And then of course they have the whole Playboys come out and the Playboy comment. It's like, I don't want to have to explain that to my 8-year-old or 10-year-old or 12-year-old because I want to be a different kind of person than we all were back in the 80s growing up. And so I think
you don't want to be fun. Is that what you're saying? You don't want to let your kid enjoy life.
Respectful of women and things of that nature.
Oh, I get you.
But I want to be able to pull him along in that concept. And I think it's fun that we've been playing like old classic Zelda games from the 80s. So to have him watch these classic 80s movies to get him hyped up for something that then is more his speed in today's modern era, I think is how you get people to come along, personally.
Could you combine the two? Could you make it a remake but allude to the original? Like you take the concept. Okay, hear me out.
I mean, Lewis is the only thing that kind of
ties it all
in
together.
The original.
Yeah, ties it all together. How about this is a concept? And you both hear me out. You both had your pitches, so I'm kind of like going off both what you both said. So you've got a character named Lewis, and you can do a quick opening flashback, say like 30 years or something, because it's roughly, it was a little over 30 years since the original came out. And basically, this is a character who has become a tech giant, maybe for like a Microsoft type company or something like that, somebody that manufactures video games, because something that happened in his childhood that we find out, we get a quick flashback to 30 years ago, his brother vanished. And he believed that he went off to be this great starfighter, but nobody believed him because it's a crazy idea. So 30 years later, he's still obsessed with this game. He has put out mobile versions of Starfighter. Because he became so enriched and wealthy and everything else through his developments of gaming that he was able to buy the rights to Starfighter. He redevelops it, puts it out as a mobile game, puts it out as an arcade game, puts it out as a console game, basically to every format to find the very, very best of the bunch. And then he has, like Troy was alluding to, like a video game championship, right? Where there are three selections, 3 kids that come in to vie for the title of the very best, the Last Starfighter. And that way you still have your tie-in, you still have an original idea, you have a modern idea. But instead of it just being an Alex, you have these 3 kids that are the very best in the world, which then triggers, because the software is still linked up to Centauri somehow, and he's still alive. There was no timeline established to how old he could be, and he could take on different faces based on the ending of the original movie, right? I mean, that's the way I understand it. Yeah. And then, so it triggers that there are people that rival Alex's original ability, and these 3, instead of just one, these 3, because the name of the tournament is the Last Starfighter, so therefore you still have your name, and these 3 become like the ones that brings Alex from where he is currently, brings him back into our world. He finally comes back because he sees that there's actual valid recruits. So you've got to tie into a remake version, and you've got to tie into a sequel version.
I like where you're going with that. So what if we were to do it a little bit different? So we don't necessarily have to have Centauri come find the kids. Maybe Centauri and Lewis have been working together the whole time, and really Lewis is like the modern day Centauri because something has happened that they don't want to let anybody know about, and there's this impending attack on Earth to bring it closer to home.
I don't like that because, and this is me personally, because the theory behind what I was saying was that Lewis has been trying to find his brother forever.
Well, yeah,
and he can't find him, so
yeah,
he wouldn't be working with.
Let me finish on that.
Okay.
So this impending attack is coming because when they get the 3 champions, Lewis is actually thinking, I'm going to take these 3 champions and have them go out and search for my brother. And when they go out and search for the brother, do they then realize that there's this impending attack coming? And the reason why they're coming is because maybe Zur or whoever has actually kidnapped Alex. And then through the course of the battle and defending and saving the frontier and all of that jazz, they end up getting Alex and bringing him home.
Or what if Alex is the new Centauri? What if, because he's now 30 years older and he doesn't have the reflexes and everything anymore to be the starfighter. He's trying to
save the race.
Right. And he's like recruiting his brother, who's a bit younger, to find new starfighters and going about the same way that Centauri did it, 30 years ago.
And that's one of the big bombs, right? That's the big twist drop, the big reveal or whatever, is that Lewis finds out he's actually been talking to Alex the whole time.
How was he talking to Alex the whole time?
Because he's thinking he's talking to Centauri. They're communicating through, just transmissions and whatever, but it's not really Centauri. And maybe Alex has to mask it to hide what his identity is or something. And then when the 3 actually go find him and save the planets or whatever, they realize that it's Alex the whole time that's been talking to Lewis.
I don't know about that. How about someone contacts him and says that they have information about his brother. Now I'm going a little too far off because you definitely still want it to be a remake of the original movie.
You going full Troy on us?
Well, I think Troy already went full Troy. I'm trying to bring it back down to Earth a little bit. Scott, what are your thoughts on this whole idea?
I mean, I like both ideas, and I'll concede to the reboot / sequel aspect of it. I just keep going back to what you and I talked about before we recorded, Aaron, and that this story still works. The whole aspect of the beta unit was really cool. The character Grig was really cool. Everything just worked. It's not a movie that I can recommend because it looks 30 years old. Mm-hmm. I love the idea of it just kind of starting fresh, but in a modern age. But like I said, I think the ideas that you guys are putting forth are both really good. So I have no problem conceding it. I'm just putting my 2 cents in for the remake instead of their sequel.
I'm of the minority. I didn't like the beta aspect. That's the only aspect of the original I didn't like. I know that's
I loved it.
I know that's everybody else's favorite part.
Especially when he takes off his head. That's the best.
I just didn't find it. I just felt like it took away from the stuff I cared about more, which was this guy, his plight, his ascension to be the best. You know what I mean? And personally, I like the idea that it's comes down to 3 finalists, 3 young kids, the best of the best. Maybe 2 guys and a girl, 2 girls and a guy. However you work it out. And then eventually one of them will take the role of leader and they will ascend to the same ranks as Alex.
Or maybe not even being the last Starfighter, but the last Starfighters. So the 3 of them are going out.
Yeah, because to me, I like the idea of it being
coordinated attacks, not just one-man show.
Yeah, because I always had a problem with the fact that you've got one guy who took out an entire fleet. I mean, if you had 3, then you've got 3 ships, and or maybe it takes 3 people to operate one ship. I don't care.
Well, from the 80s perspective, that's how video games were. You were always, in whatever it was, you were one ship against everything. So
and now everything's co-op.
Now you have the multiplayer game at the GameWorks or Dave & Buster's or whatever, and you're playing against each other.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
headsets, talking to each other, all that good stuff. Almost like you could get Nintendo to sponsor it, and it could be tied into the new Star Fox game.
Yeah, there you go. I'm sure Nintendo's going to jump on board our movie, The Last Starfighters.
They need cash.
All right.
Yeah.
Well, we got to get it forward momentum here. So, how do we want to do it? What is a decision?
Well, I think we like the video game championship idea. I think we like the 3 Starfighter idea.
Or maybe not even it being a championship, it being like an expo. Because I like what Aaron said about Lewis has become, he's become a technology giant or working for a technology giant. and it could be at like some trade show or something, and he set up this new technology that he's had, and even though it's a big expo, he's got this like kind of thing off in the corner that not too many people are, it's not like the main stage or anything like that. Just something kind of off the side that he's doing as a side project that's really good, but nobody knows about it. And 3 friends wind up joining this thing, and they all wind up winning the whole thing.
The one thing I don't like is I don't like that Lewis was aware of what's going on the whole time. I think it should be something along the lines of maybe he bought the rights to this game because he's missed his brother for 30 years. It's really torn him apart. He doesn't know where he is, what happened to him. Nobody believes him about what happened.
Like he's lost contact with him?
Yeah, exactly. So he's redeveloped this game and put it out there to the world, and it's available on every platform. But he has this like championship because in his mind, he knew that his brother was the last Starfighter. He wants to have this expo or championship, however you word it, to bring in and find the new best Starfighter. Winds it down to these 3 kids, and then that's where Alex would come back, and he realizes that that's what would bring Alex back to his world. And he never realized this is what would bring Alex back, is by finally finding someone else that rivals his skill because he can no longer do it.
And I think that works too in the modern age because esports is becoming bigger and bigger every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, competitive gaming is a thing now.
It is, absolutely.
But does that imply then that you have to know the backstory? I mean, what's nice about, it's Lewis, and he's going to go find his brother. You don't need to know the original movie. It's a nod to the people that do know the original movie.
Mm-hmm.
But you can have a new generation come in and just watch it as a standalone and not have to know the backstory.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, you'd have maybe an exposition scene. They win the championship or whatever, and then Lewis sits down and explains the history or whatever of the game, and maybe you have an exposition scene, which we all hate, but you could at least cover the backstory in a lot shorter form than having to tell the audience everything you need to know about Alex and his mission and why he disappeared and da-da-da-da-da. You could just start it out with Lewis has this game, and it could be any game, right? It doesn't have to be, it's not, we know it's Starfighter, but it's just, for the story aspect, it's any game. It's a virtual reality expo or whatever. People are playing it. They're all excited about the new VR technology. These 3 friends are in line, in this big line, so people are aware of it. So there's more people coming through, but it's these 3 friends that then sit down in the chairs or whatever, and then when they beat the game, then that's when Lewis gives them kind of the backstory, and then sends them on their way because he's actually got like 3 Starfighters in a secret bunker or whatever.
Well, so no, because then you're once again going back to Lewis knows everything,
right?
And I don't like that. I'm yelling cut right there. I don't like that. I don't want that. I want Lewis to be oblivious. I want him to question where his brother went, question his own belief in the system, because
so he thinks he was going crazy when he saw his brother fly off in the ship.
Oh, no, I don't think he thinks that. I think nobody believes him. Mm-hmm. Nobody believes him that this is what happened because he was a little kid at the time, and you can do that very quickly in a flashback or a dream sequence or something to open the movie. And him waking up in a sweat. It's just. He's devoted his life to recreating this game simply because he just wants to know what happened to his brother.
Wants to open up some communication.
Yeah, wants to open his communication. And to him, it's an honor of him. And he doesn't know that this is going to bring Alex back and find those kids. But I don't want him to have a secret Starfleet or anything else. I want Lewis to be us, to be like, what the hell is going on? That's what I want Lewis to be.
Gotcha. So Lewis would have these 3 guys. They would beat the game. And then that somehow triggers Alex to then come back.
Yes, and recruit them.
And then the 4 of them together have to go fight a new threat that's coming.
Well, I think
like that.
Yeah.
Mr. Walrus alien group that is now getting back at him for stepping on his feet.
And of course, you'll have to have Greg in there at some point, I'm sure.
This is what I was thinking for Greg, right? Because we all love the beta, or at least Scott and I love the beta unit. And I think what you can do there is that maybe Alex has a version of the beta unit or some part left over. And that's kind of like your homage, your nod back to the beta unit. Mm-hmm. But maybe because he's this tech giant, he's actually been building Delta units or something, whatever you want to call them. And then the Delta units are like the droid aspect because there was so much nods to Star Wars that maybe you have like these Delta units, and the Delta units actually help pilot the new Starfighters.
Oh, I like that. That's cool. Yeah. Okay, so what would be the fight? So we've got how our Starfighter story is going to go forward, I think, right? Do we all agree on this where we're at now?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So what is the threat? Is it going to be Zur again, or is it something different?
Well, I don't want Zur.
Yeah, I definitely don't want Zur, but I think...
Wow, that didn't take long. No.
but someone like Zur that's more menacing, right?
Yeah,
someone
definitely.
that has an issue. Or the thing that always bothered me was that it's the Star League and it's the Frontier and it's Rylos, Kodan, and Earth. Seems pretty small for
Well,
space.
you remember like his first in command, Zur's first in command, they had like that plastic eyepiece that goes over or like fold over.
Yep.
He was infinitely more cooler than Zur was.
Way cooler.
Like what if like that guy's descendant or whatever that's PO'd that Alex blew up his dad in this war years ago. What if his race are the ones that are coming back instead of the tentacle guy? Because I think that's just like an offshoot character.
Well, and I thought it would be interesting because we have like the concept of the beta units and the body snatcher changer bounty hunters and whatever. That wouldn't have been interesting if the Kodan somehow, and not to pick on the Lobot kind of big forehead, this mind share. It seemed like there was a way that Rylans can communicate telepathically almost. Because I never understood why the giant 3D hologram floated over in the middle of the command center there in the original movie. But maybe somehow they brainwashed the Rylans, and the Rylans, if that's even the right way to call them, Rylosians?
Riley.
They said Rylans in the movie, didn't they?
Yeah, I think.
Yeah, right. Yeah, that's right. So maybe the Rylans somehow are like war machine robots programmed or some other way by the Kodan, and they're actually coming to attack Earth. And because the Rylans look so much like Earthlings, they just kind of blend in.
I think you're going full Heinrichs. That's
they're
right.
Like, they're like spies or something.
I think you already got robots in one aspect. I mean, if you put too many robots, now we're in Ultron territory.
Well, they wouldn't be robots. They'd be mind controlled somehow by the Kodan.
I don't think the Rylans would fit in as well as you're thinking. that hairstyle is brutal.
But they don't have to have the same hairstyle.
It's like the lead singers of Poison or something.
No, I wish that would be okay. That like you don't know what I'm talking about, like that half halo, like middle-aged balding man, but like everybody in the planet has that hairstyle.
Yeah. Would you keep the character, whoever's in charge, because you got to have that main villain, even though they're more vicious, more sadistic? Would you still have them named Zur? Just not have any of the same?
No, because then if you have Lewis and everything, and you call him Zur, then you expect to see Zur.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
The
If you're
original
gonna have that tied to the original, then you got to have a new villain.
So you got to find 3 other letters randomly and throw it in there. Zay, Z-U-Y. That's what I got. That's
awful.
Hey, you got something better?
Not right now.
All right.
I said Agar.
I like Agar. That's fine. Makes
Agar.
Yeah. You got something better? Not right now.
Not right now. Give me 20 minutes.
But what race is it going to be? Is the question. Is it the Kodan still?
Did they have? Did that race have a name? That the second in command guy? Did they ever mention that, or was he just there?
The guy
they were the Kodan.
Yeah, they were the Kodan. Yeah. That's
that's right. Because Zur was
Rylan.
He was
Rylan. That's right.
Yep.
Yeah, let's just go with the Kodan then.
Yeah, I'm good with that.
I think that sounds cool, and then you still have that tie there.
Maybe the Kodan are pissed off that Alex blew up their command ship, and they're been hunting for Alex this whole time.
And it's taken them 30 years to finally plot their revenge.
And then you can have the whole deal like, well, we had that idiot Zur in here who was a Rylan. We got this new leader who's the son of that second in command guy from the first movie, and he's now in charge, and he's a real deal instead of like a kid. Like, I mean, seriously, Zur was such an annoying villain.
Can we have Agar or whatever his name be? When at some point when he's having a conversation with people, can we have Zur's head in like a box,
that'd be awesome.
in a box or something, so to show that he went after him and got him, and now
they're gonna have his head if they blew up the ship.
No, Zur wasn't blown up. Zur escaped. He was in the escape pod.
Yeah, remember they take him down to the prison, and then they jettison, and then they crash into the moon.
Oh my gosh, yeah, you're right. I completely forgot about that. I just watched it.
Yeah, so maybe the second in command is like avenging his father's death. It was Zur's fault for trying to break into the frontier. The second in command goes and kills Zur, has his head in a cryogenic chamber or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
And then with that, he's now set on his revenge in order to also avenge the other person that was responsible for his dad's death, which is Alex.
Woohoo!
I like it.
And then our 3 heroes are really they're the heroes. Alex is more like the mentor.
Right.
Yeah.
And Lewis, he's kind of heading the charge between the 3, right?
Well, I think Lewis stays on Earth. I don't think he goes with. I think it's just more of the bittersweet, and reunited. They finally they have their moment where they explain what they've been doing for the last 30 years and all that. And maybe at the end, Alex can take him to space with him because he doesn't want to be without his brother again. I do think
Yeah.
they had a sweet relationship in the original.
I think at some point Lewis does have to get to go into space.
I think
Or
it's
he
a
could,
very
or he
end.
could run in command from on Earth or something. Like he's coordinating for them and giving them commands from like his laptop or something.
Yeah, but I think you keep him on Earth because I think the Kodan are coming to Earth to destroy Earth. So therefore, it's an immediate threat. So we have that face on Earth.
Yeah, and then it works because then you can beam your computer technology to satellites, which will communicate with the starfighters, and it's more realistic and it's
Well,
not too far
I'm
out
going
there.
more with so we have as an audience an invested interest in
Absolutely.
what's going on Earth, other
Yeah.
than it's Earth. We actually have a
Right.
character on the ground that can relate. Because in this day and age, you got to have a little bit more. You got to have the Kodan start to gain a little ground. Because I think
totally. And the way they did that with the original was with the beta. But if we're not going to do that, then this is the way to keep somebody on Earth to keep that, make as a reminder that this is what we're protecting.
And, we got it. The reason why they're going after Earth, the Kodan's going after Earth, is because of Alex. I don't know if that's what we already said. Maybe I missed it. But it's because of Alex. And they're going to, since you destroyed us 30 years ago, we're blowing up your world.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Do we have character names? Do we care what our 3 characters are named? Or we really don't care?
Tom, Dick, and Harry.
Well, you got to have, I want a woman in there somewhere. I don't want just a bunch of 3 dudes.
Yeah, I think we should have one female in there for sure.
Yep. So a guy and 2 girls and a pizza place. 2 guys, a girl, and a pizza place. Nathan Fillion's in here at some point. Sure. I think we have a movie, right? Do we have a total movie?
I think we do.
Sweet. At the very end of the movie, Lewis will go into space with Alex, as well as our 3 starfighters.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
So who would you want to cast as these new starfighters? Anybody?
I don't care. The 3
Yeah.
starfighters could be anybody. I think we have to have a really good Lewis though.
Okay, so let's think of Lewis. Who's going to be the adult Lewis? Who's the best one?
I said
He's
just
going to be
because
about 30 to 40 years old, somewhere in there.
I went with just because I really liked his performance in Cloverfield, and he's like probably going to be visually aware. But John Gallagher Jr. did a
I
really
like
good
that
job.
choice.
I think he could actually play it off pretty well. Kind of that nerdy, geeky.
Is he Emmett in that movie?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay.
He's the guy from Newsroom.
Oh, yeah. Actually, I think that's a good pick. Scott, do you have anybody else?
I had 2 possibilities. I like the idea of Joseph Gordon-Levitt, although I think he might be a little too young looking for Lewis.
I
But
think, yeah, a little bit. But
Oh, but he looks so much like him though.
yeah, he does.
yeah. And then I thought just to kind of have a tie to the 80s, although this guy's not doing anything recently, but Fred Savage.
I like Joseph Gordon-Levitt. I don't like Fred Savage.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Joseph Gordon-Levitt, I think, would be a cool... Because he could play older. Hell, he was all kinds of ages in Looper.
Mm-hmm.
He was Bruce Willis's age.
And like you said, he does kind of look like Lewis.
Yeah.
He does look like Lewis.
I'm on board with Joseph Gordon-Levitt.
Okay.
All right.
And you definitely got to have Lance Guest come back as for Alex, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
would be awesome. He's not doing anything, is he?
I don't know what he's doing. I'm sure he's around. I saw his IMDb credentials. He's still acting, so he's still around.
Oh, really?
Mhm.
Okay.
So he could come back, definitely. So our other 3, I'd like to hear what you guys think. Who do you think the best young starfighters should be? And they should be, I don't know, teenagers probably over 18, because if they leave at the end, you don't want a bunch of parents filing DCFS reports. If you have any idea who you want as our starfighters, then email them to remakethismovieright@gmail.com. Remakethismovieright@gmail.com. Any particular director? Is there a director that is right for this movie? Don't say J.J. Abrams.
No, not J.J. Abrams, but I mean,
You need somebody from the 80s. I think that can capture that 80s aspect again.
No, you don't. No, you don't. Troy, this is
Come
where we
on.
put you back in the box. There's no director from the 80s besides Steven Spielberg still around. That's
We got Zemeckis still around.
I was going to say I had Robert Zemeckis down or
That's
Roland
what
Emmerich.
Those are the 2 I had.
I'm on board with Zemeckis.
Mhm.
Sons of bitches.
You already used your cut.
Huh? I know I can't use my cut. I already used it, but I used it valiantly. I used it for the right reasons. All right, our nostalgic moments. We're going to have a few nostalgic moments, nods to the original in this movie. We're going to have the fanfare. Can you guys explain that?
The opening credit music.
Okay. The phrase, the Last Starfighter phrase, that's going to be part of this. We're going to have a beta unit in the background at some point. And then we're obviously Lance Guest is going to be in our movie. So there you go. There's our nods to the original. And I think we've got a complete movie. You guys, Are you guys happy with it? You like it?
I do.
I do like it, yeah.
All right. Well, before we hear our trailer, we got one more clip from the original. Here you go.
We're gonna be famous, aren't we, Odie?
Yes, sir. The whole world, the whole universe is gonna know about it. Starlight, Starbright, the place where Alex and Maggie left for the stars.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zor and the Kodan Armada.
All right. I'm ready. Are you guys ready for Wayne Henderson to make this movie right?
I just want to hear Wayne's voice in a video game now.
Yeah, exactly.
What game would you put him in?
Anything.
Donkey Kong? Pitfall?
Because the vocal songs in those games were top notch.
I was gonna say, what do you want Wayne to actually sing the when he swings on the vine over the alligators?
I would pay money for Wayne to sing that.
That was the weirdest Tarzan impression I've ever heard, Troy.
It was the
Because
weakest
it was
too.
a weird digital version in the game.
It was like it was an 8-bit version of the song.
Like 4-bit.
Okay, well, it is time for the trailer for our remake, our version of The Last Starfighter, which is now called The Last Starfighters, correct?
Mm-hmm.
All
I
right.
like it.
Let's now finally hear our final trailer for our new movie. Take it away, Wayne Henderson, courtesy of MediaVoiceovers.com. Here you go.
Greetings, Starfighter. You have been recruited by the Star League to defend the frontier against Zor and the Kodan Armada.
30 years ago, Alex Rogan disappeared into the stars. After spending his entire life looking to the skies searching, his brother Lewis decides to honor him by holding a gaming expo searching for, much like Alex was in his time, the greatest gamer on our planet. When three friends do what no one else can and beat the game of Starfighter, Alex finally returns to Earth with a mission for them all. The Kodan Armada have anointed Agar to lead their army to bring destruction to Earth. With the Star League depleted, Alex recruits our three gamers to take their rightful place as starfighters, defenders of the galaxy. This summer, Robert Zemeckis puts dreamers in the cockpit as three small-town kids lead the future of the human race. They are the Last Starfighters. No betas were harmed during the making of this film.
Nice job, Wayne.
All right, Wayne, awesome.
You always amaze me, and I want to have you at my birthday party, the next one I have, and you can narrate it, the whole thing. Aaron walked in.
Aaron says something sarcastic.
Wayne Henderson commentaries.
Exactly. Oh, he could do commentaries for movies we like. There you go. There's a new podcast idea, Wayne. Just go out and find a bunch of movies you like and just talk about them. I like your voice enough. I'd listen. Well, what did you guys think? Did we nail it, or do you think you have a better pitch for this film? Email us your thoughts on this week's show, casting ideas, or your short pitch to remakethismovieright@gmail.com. Remakethismovieright@gmail.com. And we might mention you on the next teaser episode. I want to mention again, the teaser episodes are only to subscribers, so please subscribe if you want to listen to those. Review us on iTunes, please do. We've got several, but we definitely could use some more reviews on iTunes or however you listen. Always help the show out. Every time you review a show, it kind of bumps it up a little bit. So we really could use that. If you're listening on your Apple device right now, you can do it on your phone, I think. Troy, you've got Apple. Is that how it works?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So please do that. We really appreciate it. If you listen on Stitcher or something, give us a thumbs up. However you listen, if there's a review option, please do it. It really does help the show. I want to mention Wayne Henderson one more time, MediaVoiceovers.com. He does several other podcasts. He does a Packers fan podcast. He does 11/22/63, a recent show on Hulu. Definitely check those out, but MediaVoiceovers.com is his main website. Troy, Scott, thanks guys for being here. You want to plug yourselves?
You can listen to me on the Hollywood Outsider podcast, which I do with Aaron once a week, as well as the Gaming Outsider podcast, which I actually host. And we talk about video games, and we've got a really cool episode that is coming up that'll probably be available by the time this episode airs, where we're interviewing a guy named Grant Henry, who is behind Metroid Metal. I'm really excited about that, so check us out over there.
Okay, and Troy Heinrichs.
You're listening to me, who is on the Blacklist Exposed podcast with that guy on the other side of the microphone, Mr. Aaron Peterson. We're coming back on April 7th, and we have a special episode coming out as well right before then with one of the cast from the show. And so that'll be really exciting. And we also do a limited event podcast for the 11/22/63 series on Hulu.
With Wayne.
With Wayne Henderson. Yeah, 11/22/63podcast.com.
Whew. Man, I'm excited. I want to see this movie. And I'm gonna have to reach out to Lance Guest and be like, why don't you come on the show and talk about this remake we're gonna do?
Oh, that would be awesome.
I think it's gonna do it for this episode of Remake This Movie Right. Remember, you can find us at remakeThisMovieRight.com or on Twitter at RemakeRight. Sorry, I'm still getting the Twitter going, so it's still in the very early stages, so to speak. But at Remake Right is the Twitter address. If you're on Twitter, be sure to go follow us there. That's gonna do it for this episode of Remake This Movie Right. And the next movie you watch, remember, guys, it will get a remake someday. And only you can make it better. Take care, guys.